Hi guys and welcome back, and today we'll be building Tamiya's M4A3E8 Sherman, otherwise known as the Easy 8 in 1/35th scale, and I'm excited to be building this tank. I really needed the therapy of a kit that was easy to put together after the Bofors gun and the Tilly truck in the JRH Darwin diorama. I thought nothing would be more therapeutic than doing a brand new Tamiya kit. Now this kit is my entry into Steve Mottram's M Group build, and I picked this kit for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a Tamiya kit, and we all know Steve's in love with Tamiya kits. Two, he was showing us around his stash a couple of months ago and was desperately trying to find this kit, and it was sitting on the shelf behind him, and I actually found it reasonably hilarious because I felt like I was watching a traditional British pantomime. I wanted to shout out to him that it was behind him, but I thought that was the appropriate kit to build for Steve, and as I said, really looking forward to getting into it. And finally, just before I get started, and we'll do a quick inbox review and have a look at the sprues and then get stuck into the build, I really thought it was important to acknowledge the fact that Steve is such a good bloke, and I think he's brought a huge amount to our community. I sort of think of him as Michael Parkinson of kit reviews. He's a very laid-back style, he's got a huge heart, and helps out lots of people in the community. He's very generous with his time and also his money and his kits. So great pleasure to be involved in this M Group build. Steve's not as prolific as he was in posting. He's happily found love, and I think that's fantastic with Sal, and wish them all the best. That from a selfish point of view, and I think speaking for myself and the rest of your subscribers, we'd like to see a little bit more of you back on YouTube, mate, because I always enjoy watching your videos. So we'll just have a look at the parts and look at the tracks first, and look, they're just the normal rubber band tracks, but you can glue them together with normal glue, and they've got nice detail and are very clean. And then the sprues themselves, and the overall commentary on the sprues is that they're really, really clean. There's no flash. Everything is very well moulded, as you'd expect, I guess, from Tamiya, and lots of nice detail in lots of the pieces. Some good casting texture there. The jerry cans are nice and crisp, and little filigree parts next to them for the handles. I really can't speak highly enough of it. All of the details and the little rivets and what have you are fabulous. So I got more excited by the second as I kept looking through the kit and looking at the parts, and lots of wheels on a Sherman, of course, but again, very little cleanup. A little bit of a seam line around most of them, but that filed off pretty easily and scraped off with the X-Acto, so no great dramas there. The 50 cal is incredibly good looking. It's nice and detailed, and again, not over-engineered. Enough parts to make it look very good, but not 50 parts to drive you insane in putting it together. The upper hull is very nice, very clean and crisply moulded, and again, some good detail. I mean, the Sherman's a pretty simple looking tank, but they've managed to get detail into the right places where it needs to be, and even with the serial numbers moulded in, which I thought was a nice touch as well. The upper hull is again the same quality as the lower hull, nice and detailed, good texture. They've managed to get that into the casting, which is really good. Serial numbers again, which should pick up nicely with a little bit of weathering. The glass pieces are really crisp and clear, really beautifully clear, and I was really impressed with the quality of them. And then the decals, the normal Tamiya decals, not a lot, but you probably don't need a lot for a Sherman tank, so really happy with the contents of the box. And so on with the build. And typically I just build methodically through section by section. Sometimes you'll leave some parts out because you know they'll get in the way, or you want to paint them separately later on. That's probably up to everyone's own technique and how you feel most comfortable in putting it together. But once I've got all the parts off for a section, clean them up with the file and the X-Acto, making sure I've got any of the sprue gate joints cleaned up or any seam lines that might be there. Check that I've got all the parts against the instructions and do a little bit of dry fitting to make sure I know how all that's going to go together, and then I just glue them together, and it seems to work for me without too many dramas, as long as I don't drop anything on the floor and lose it. So onto the wheels now, and just looking at all of the component parts, so the bogie pieces and also the actual road wheels themselves, which is 24 of them in total, 12 on each side. And look, they are, like everything else, quite nicely moulded and good detail, but they all had a thin seam line, and they all needed to be filed and cleaned up a little bit to make sure that was gone. And this is probably the least favourite part of building a tank, any tank for me, is doing the wheels. I just find it frustrating because you're doing the same thing over and over. You've got to do it. You need to get them all cleaned up so that they look good, but I think it's just doing the same thing over and over, and I guess this took me about an hour from start to finish, cutting off all the pieces and then doing the sanding and the cleanup. So I think it's the lack of progress you make in the actual build, or it feels like you're not making much progress because you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't see things coming together before your eyes, sort of thing. But anyway, all the pieces fitted together very nicely, and it's just one of those things, I guess, that you've got to go through. Other people probably don't mind doing the wheels, but it doesn't matter what tank it is, it just bugs me for some reason. So I'm putting it down to impatience and the lack of progress that you feel you're making. Anyway, they all came up quite nice, so you end up with 6 bogies, 3 on each side, and I haven't actually glued them on as the instructions say, because I want to paint them separately so I can do the rubber and get a better access to it than if they were already stuck on the tank. So you'll see that towards the end when I put it all together, but nothing's actually glued together. So there's a couple of places where you need to drill a little 1mm hole to take apart on the top of the hull, and I think they engineer it this way because it's right on the edge in the seam, and I don't think they'd be able to mould it with the depression there for the part. So with their normal thoroughness, there's a guide slot for you to put your drill bit through, and it just goes slowly, and make sure you clean up on the other side and they come out okay. So I had a little bit of trouble with the barrel, or more particularly the muzzle brake, and I don't know if that's my fault because maybe I put too much glue, but it went a bit funny in shape and a big seam line down the middle, which took a lot of cleaning up, and really surprised me, to be honest, because I thought I'd used the same amount of glue as I'd used on the barrel itself, and that came up very nicely, and just a fine seam line which sanded off and scraped down really cleanly. So I was a little bit perplexed. It's the only trouble I had with the whole kit, so it cleaned up okay, but it was a bit of a surprise. So I always like to put the glass parts in last of all, but I wanted to spray the exterior of the tank with everything in place, so I just rolled up some blue tack and stuck it inside here so that the paint didn't go everywhere. It probably doesn't really matter in the finish, but I'd just sort of done a bit of a white interior, and I just wanted to preserve that so that I could stick this back on the tank and then do all the airbrushing, get all the final airbrushing finished on the exterior, and then I can stick the glass pieces in here when that's done. So getting towards the end now and just doing a few little tidy up bits and pieces, and I wasn't happy with the way the brackets fitted onto the hull. All the photos I've seen, there's usually some reasonably significant weld lines around them, so just made up some milliput 2-part epoxy putty and use that to just carefully get a little bit around the ends of where it joined to hopefully simulate what looks like weld lines. Doesn't look great now, but hopefully it will paint up a lot better than it is. And the final thing was just to remove the barrel of the 30 cal, the hull-mounted machine gun, because I am making a very specific tank in history, which I'll talk about more in the next video, which will be the painting and weathering video. But not only is it a specific tank, but it's a specific action that this tank fought in. And in this action, they actually removed the 30 cal from the tank and got its tripod set up and mounted it somewhere else in their defensive position. So it was just a matter of cutting the barrel off and drilling it through and then getting it back in around the right way, which was tricky actually, because without the backing part, I struggled a little bit to get it up around the right way. There is actually a right way and a wrong way for this, but it got there in the finish and it looks okay. And that's pretty much it. So just do the quick 360 whiz around after the priming. I actually really love how they look just primed. And although it wouldn't be normal, you could almost, well, I think you could almost display it just like this. But I will paint it and weather it in the next video, and it will be ready to go into the new diorama. So look, just for what it's worth, if you're just looking at videos about making model kits and think you'd like to get started, buy this kit. It puts itself together. Tamiya have done a terrific job, and it was just a great pleasure to build. So a few still shots now, close-ups, and then I'll come back and say goodbye. And that's it. So thanks very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. As I said before, it's a fabulous kit to put together, and I think a great one for beginners. As it sits at the moment, none of the parts are glued together. The bogies are just sitting there, and the tracks just click together, and the upper and lower hull and turret, none of that's glued together. But the Tamiya fit is so good that it's very easy to do. So look, thanks again. I hope you enjoyed watching. And again, my entry for Steve Mottram's N Group build. So if you liked what you saw, thumbs up, subscribe so you keep up to date with all the new releases, and look forward to your comments as always. Thanks guys, take care.